In an age where digital connection increasingly replaces real human interaction, how did we go from being the species of tribes to a species of strangers?
Community. Let me ask you all a very important question. Have you ever truly felt that you were part of one? And I'm not talking about a WhatsApp chat or a Discord server or even an online forum. I'm talking about a place where you have felt seen, heard, and most importantly, connected to another human being. Because you see, the dictionary defines community as a group of people all living together, working towards something in common. Now, unfortunately, I'm here to tell you today that in today's technological landscape, that definition is outdated. Because you see, we're not really living together anymore. We're just living next to each other. Because, see, the human species is the most connected species possibly in the known universe. At the touch of your fingertips, you can speak to anyone in the world at the touch of a button. And yet, we have never been more lonely as a society. We're living in the biggest epidemic of loneliness that the Western world has ever seen, especially amongst young people with record numbers of it. But how can we have this when we can speak to anyone that we want? I've got family in India that I can speak to at a minute's notice, so how can you be lonely? Well, when you really look at today's landscape, we've streamlined almost every possible route for authentic human connection out of our day-to-day lives without even realizing it. You text your friends instead of actually speaking to them. We order food on Uber Eats instead of going to restaurants and feeling the buzz of people around. And it's probably cheaper to go to the restaurant these days anyway. We even spend hundreds of hours in virtual worlds instead of going out into the big, beautiful one that surrounds us. We even stream to our TVs instead of going to the cinema and feeling the buzz of people around us. But I want to ask you, how did we get to this point? So my neurospicy brain is going to ask you to come on a journey with me right now. We're going to go back in time like Doctor Strange into the multiverse. We're going to do this. And we're going to go back 350 years ago to a village here in this country right now, where human connection and sense of community was not optional. It was part of everyday survival, where our ancestors would work in fields together. They would drink together at taverns. They would pray together at religious sites. They would laugh, dance, and grieve with one another. Now, I want you to imagine going back to those same people right now and telling them that in the not-so-distant future, their descendants are never going to need to leave their home to talk to another person. They're never going to have to go and get their own food, and they're never even going to actually have to communicate because they're all going to walk around with giant glowing boxes in their pockets where they're just not going to do anything. I am willing to bet you, right now, that conversation would go a little something like this. Because, you see, you threaten the very thing that holds that community together. Their sense of belonging, their sense of connection. Because we as human beings are tribal animals. We are hardwired to seek tribal connection. Regardless of how extroverted or introverted you are, it is hardwired into the very fabric of what it means to be human. So the neurospice is going to kick back, and we're going to come back again. So vroom, 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 back here to the modern day, where depending where you live, and I feel like everyone in this audience has a story like this, where if you actually try going up to someone in the street or on the bus or on the train and saying hello to them, you're kind of treated like a glitch in the Matrix. So, but how did we get to that? How did we get to a point where saying hello to someone is bad? Now, I want to share a very shocking statistic with you. So Meta conducted a survey of over 140 countries across the Western world. And whilst you can never get the results 100% perfect, because you literally cannot interview every person who's ever existed, what they were able to determine was something truly upsetting. 1 in 8 people report feeling some form of loneliness or isolation. 1 in 8. And when they did the maths, when they calculated all this, it came to a horrible number. It came to 1 billion people. 1 billion. 1/8 of the entire population of the human race is feeling some form of isolation, and we don't even recognize it anymore. Now, I want the audience to do something for me at the moment. Now, I'm going to ask you to participate in something. Please, can I ask that you all look to the closest person to your left? Now, can I please ask that you look to the closest person to your right? Someone that you're looking at right now is experiencing some form of loneliness, and we can't tell because we're not living together anymore. We're living next to each other. So you might be wondering, who is this man that's walked on stage and made you all feel a bit like shit right now for not noticing this? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name's Simran Whitham, and I'm the CEO of the Format Group, which is one of the UK's biggest games industry events and creative industries organisations. And I've spent a decade of my life building communities both online and in the real world. And a question that bothers me, that thrives my life's work, that I played at the beginning of that video is, how did we go from being a species of tribes to a species of strangers? And throughout this journey of building communities and hosting events and bringing people together, I came to a simple formula that I think is the key to fixing that epidemic of loneliness. And it's quite a simple one, actually. Bring the vibes, and you'll find your tribe. Because you see, at 19 years old, I never understood what the concept of community was. Because I used to be isolated. I didn't have a community. I was lonely. And that loneliness helped me find events. And I started off hosting my own events. And I developed a dream. That dream was to build Europe's biggest games industry rave for the video game industry. I realized very quickly how hard that dream was going to be, because if you want to talk about digital isolation, that community has nailed it to a T. Their work lives, their entertainment, they do not need to leave their homes. But yet they still do. For events. And why is that? They still come to events when they don't need to, if they don't need to talk to people. Because, as I said before, we are hardwired to seek human connection in our day-to-day lives. We're tribe animals that thrive off real, authentic human connection. It's hardwired. And no matter how much you try to digitally synthesize human connection out of the human spirit, it will never go away. It's hardwired into what it means to be human. Dare I say, it's part of what makes us special. It's part of the soul. And you'll never get rid of that tribal connection. And for me, when I started to bring my vibes, attracting 100 people like me, proud gamers, because I'm a proud gamer and a proud geek at that, when I brought those vibes, I started to attract 2,000 strong tribe. I built that dream that I wanted to do. Because when we create spaces for people to come together, when we build community conduits, and you're going to hear me use that word a lot, because I've been told when I speak I use a filler word. Like, I'm going to use my filler word to be a strong one, because that's the idea I want you to leave with today. Community conduits. But when we build those spaces for people to connect, feel heard, feel safe, but most importantly, connected, we tap into that ancient need for connection that's hardwired into each and every one of us, that can never be replaced regardless of how much technology tries to take us out of the everyday human experience. And for me, events were my solution. But I want to talk to you about what I think the solution is. Community conduits. Now, for me, community conduits was events. But for each and every one of us in this room, and you all have a tribe, we're in one right now. This very room is a tribe. But all of us have one. Every single one of you belongs to one. And that community conduit could be something completely different. It could be building a book club or a neighborhood garden project, one that I don't have the patience for, but you could still do that. Or it could be releasing a product out into the world that people love and fall in love with and build their own communities from. What matters is, it doesn't matter what form your community conduit takes shape in. What matters is when we build that space for people to come together, people start to heal. People start to feel that real sense of authentic community and connection that they just are lacking in today's landscape. And I spoke about healing a second, and I want to tell you an very important story. But before I do, human connection is advertised as a luxury today in our media. It's not a luxury. It's our very nature. It's who we are as a species. It's what makes us so wonderful at what we do. Everything we've accomplished has been through human connection and community. Now, I want to tell you all, I spoke before about healing. Well, I want to tell you an important story. I want to tell you the story of my biggest impact story of a decade of hosting Europe's biggest games industry rave. And that is the story of a man called Bob. Now, Bob has asked me to keep his name a secret for this, and I'm going to honour that request. But Bob's story is very, very important. I promise it's a bit long-winded, but there is a powerful point to it. You see, Bob was a man who was the epitome of everything I once spoke about. He had no tribe, no community, no connection in his life. He was isolated and alone, like 1 billion people around the world are. But in October 2023, Bob had seen an event online. He'd seen a community conduit with enough vibes that attracted him to want to seek out a tribe like him, with similar hobbies and interests. So he took a risk. He left that digital isolation to come to an event. And at that event, he felt a connection that he had not felt in so long. That sacred human connection that exists inside each and every one of us. Now, why am I telling you the story of Bob? Well, Bob, after the event, I got this humongous email. This thing was long. It was like biblical text level long, right? And I thought I was being sued at first, right? I really did. I was like, right, what have I done now? I wasn't being sued. At the end of it was a thank you from Bob. Because Bob had explained that he'd come to the event. He'd met people like him. He found friendships that he lacked in his everyday life. And later in the email, Bob told me why he wanted to thank me so much. Because you see, Bob had intended to kill himself because he was so lonely. He didn't want to live anymore. But it was that one community conduit whose vibes had attracted him, enabled him to feel a sense of human connection that enabled him to carry on, to live this beautiful life that we all live. And in that moment, that's when I realized that community conduits, no matter what shape or form they take, it doesn't have to be events, it can be anything. But what matters is, in that space, that's when we start to tap into real, authentic community. So, I want to ask you, what does community look like to you? Because when we build spaces like community conduits, we don't just impact the lives of others, we impact the lives of every single one around us. Like for my community conduits, I've seen impact stories that I can't believe. I've seen charities raise funds for amazing things. I've seen businesses be born. I've made 2 babies as a result. They're not my babies. My fiance's there in the front crowd, by the way. I really want to highlight that. They're not mine. But I've seen 2 babies go on to be made as a result of my community conduits. Because when we forge those spaces, that's when magic happens. That's when people rediscover their sense of community. And if someone like me from a council estate in northern Manchester who had no resources 10 years ago when he started this journey, was able to build a global community that stretches across Europe. Imagine what each and every single one of you in this room can do today. So I'm going to get booted off this stage very, very soon. So I want to just leave you all with a very important message. Our sense of community has never been more threatened than it ever has today. Technology is vying for our attention every single day. And this is not a talk about me saying fight the machine, by the way. I'm not saying that. Technology is going to continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence, entertainment, software, it's all going to continue to evolve. What I am saying is be very cautious about how this technology is extracting you from the human experience, from finding authentic community in your life, that's stopping you from feeling that sense of tribal connection that we all have. Because the reality is, if we want to beat the epidemic of loneliness, if we want to take that 1 billion to zero, because Bob's story is just one of a billion. There are 1 billion Bobs out there today. And we don't need more apps. We need more dance floors. We don't need more software. We need more community halls and more of those garden projects that I mentioned before. That's what we need, because in those spaces, that's when we begin to heal. That's when we transform lives, like Bob. Because each and every one of you in this room has a tribe. Every single one of you. Every one of you has the ability to find a tribe, or better yet, build your own community conduit. Because again, when we build those spaces, we don't impact just our own lives. We impact the lives of others, like it did for me at 19. And you finding your tribe or building your own will help so many people. And the way we do that is what I've got behind the stage at the moment, behind me. Now, I'm going to get kicked off in a few seconds, so I just want to ask the audience to do something for me very quickly. On the count of 3, I want you to join me in unison in saying the words behind me. And if you're all quiet, I'll treat it as a rehearsal and we'll just keep doing it for the cameras until we get it right. So on the count of 3, I'm going to say, bring the vibes, bring the tribe. And I want you to dig deep into that tribal connection and make it a reality. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1. Bring the vibes, bring the tribe. Thank you.